Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Sagittarius. Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2023. Lost my place in the year there for a second. I hope you're well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. Second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, which is over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with a group of really quite extraordinary people. So if that's something that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do. Right, Sag, let's have a look. Can I have 3 cards for Sagittarius, please? Whoa, there's the first one. We have the 5 of... Good Lord, what's going on here? The 5 of Wands, Saturn in Leo. There we go. Sorry about that. Absolutely no idea. Off on a tangent altogether. 5 of Wands for your recent past. Current energy, please. There we go. 7 of Wands. All right, it's getting a bit fiery. And what's coming towards Sagittarius for October, please? What does Sag need to know about October? We have the Queen of Cups. Okay, so we have the 2 of Wands at the bottom of the deck, just to give us an overwhelming amount of fire in the reading here. You'll notice that there's no major arcana. That's not really a surprise to me, Sag, on account of the fact that the struggle here, I feel, does seem to be entirely internal with you this month, right? We've got the 2 of Wands here. Any card number 2 always has a heavier weighting towards what's going on internally for me. So, you know, the Wand suit representing action, as it often does, behaviours, the things that we actually do. This 2 of Wands is a contemplation. Right? We talk about it in terms of being a crossroads. Right? Am I going to go this way or am I going to go that way? You know, before the decision is actually made, you're not moving anywhere, right? So you don't want to just start walking that way if by the time you've finished your ruminations, you actually want to go that way. So there's a pause, there's a hesitation here with the 2 of Wands while you're scoping out the environment and seeing which way it is that you want to go. Now, we could be talking in terms of a decision that you have to make this month, something that functions essentially like a crossroads where you have an option of doing one thing or doing another. But because certainly from this card and here, we've got this sense of this being very, very internal. It feels like it's much more to do with you as a person rather than what it is that you do. Now, what you do will come as a corollary of who you are as a person, but it's almost like there's a turning point here for you internally, in terms of the way that you choose to deal with things, the way that you choose to turn up in the world, you know, those sorts of things. But it really does feel like it's inner and outer conflict that has been somewhat characterising your existence of late. And I don't mean you're getting into fights with everyone, Sag, although there might be an aspect of that that's been coming up here for you. More it is that your internal world and your external world are mirroring each other beautifully at this point. So where you are feeling perhaps stuck or trapped or conflicted or torn about something, so there is an amplification of those kind of energies outside of you, where you seem to be coming into direct contact with things that are pushing the buttons of either one of the sides that you're torn about. I hope that makes sense. Let's get some clarifiers out and we'll put some meat on the bones of this. Tell me about the 5 of Wands, please. Thank you. We have the Page of Pentacles. And we have the Death card. That's the first major arcana of the reading. I know about 7 of Wands. And, you know, I'll point it out now. I probably will reiterate this shortly. I mean, Death represents Scorpio in amongst other things. And October is kind of like the gateway to Scorpio energy. I do believe we have some stuff moving into Scorpio this month, which is going to feel crunchy for some people, because it's got a... Scorpio is always very good at dredging the depths of things. Oh, that's rather on point. Right. Anyway, tell me about the Seven of Wands, the Four of Cups, and whatever that is over there, Knight of Wands. Okay, that's interesting. Knight of Wands obviously representing Sagittarius. Now, tell me about this Queen of Cups. We have the Knight of Cups. Nice. And whatever that is, Nine of Wands, Sagittarius card there. We've got the Five of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Now that traditionally is quite... It's one of the tarot's challenging cards. I mean, to be fair, if you're looking hard enough, you can find a challenge in any of the cards, including the ones that are generally considered to be the good cards of the tarot. I'm thinking like the Star and the Sun and things like that. But got this additional Scorpio energy flowing through here. And the Five of Cups, in amongst other things, talks about focusing on the wrong thing. And I wonder, Sag, if this is why you've been feeling conflicted and torn. But we will get to that. We'll draw it in as it becomes relevant. So we start off in your recent past with the Five of Wands. Now, just to be clear, when I talk about the recent past, we literally could be talking about this morning, when you got up and some sort of thing occurred to you, some sort of awareness of what you were struggling with came to the surface. Or we could be going back as far as 6 weeks. It'll be different for each of you. Certainly encapsulated within that time, there is a sense of struggle. Now, this inner and outer world reflection, this mirroring, I think is really important, in so much as I do think it is the theme for you this month. And the more readily that you can recognise that the things that are happening outside of you are holding up a mirror to things that require examination inside of you, I think the easier you're going to navigate this energy this month. I mean, I don't actually think that there's anything particularly negative here. I do want to reiterate, to just say that out overtly already, because it seems like kind of the crunchy energy is where you've been and where you currently find yourself. Whereas when we move into October, there's a certain settling down of this energy. There's a peace that's coming that has been somewhat elusive in the previous period of time. But, you know, the thing that's missing here on the table is the Six of Wands. We go from the 5 and we jump to the 7. And the odd numbers are given to be intellectual. The even numbers are emotional, and that's not just true of tarot, but some people wouldn't even read it that way in tarot, but certainly it's true of numerology, right? So what we're missing is that kind of balancing force between the two. And the Six of Wands represents success. And I think that might be something that you've been finding it very difficult to put your finger on somewhere. In fact, actually, we carry on the pattern here because we jump straight to the Nine of Wands. We're missing the Eight of Wands and the Six of Wands. And they seem to be almost more significant by their absence than they would be if they were on the table, because it gives us an insight into what it is that you might actually be struggling with here at this point. So with the Six of Wands being missing here as it is, and that being the purpose of the struggle, right? Where we persevere, we get through something that has felt really, really crunchy, something that has tested us in some way, you know, the Six of Wands represents the meaning, I think, behind the struggle. Now, I've talked before in the last couple of months about how one is almost contingent upon the other. So without the struggle, the victory is meaningless. Without the possibility of victory, it is simply just struggle. There's an interdependence between the two of them. And I think that perhaps you've been lost in the struggle for a little bit here, Sag. And it is initially internal. Like, certainly this is all internal here. So there are things that the universe is asking of you. There are ways in which you are being asked to transform that perhaps were not what you anticipated the transformation should look like. You know, you've had some big ass energies to deal with, certainly since July. I mean, you kind of pottered quite nicely for the first 6 months of the year, but then suddenly July came in and huge energies to deal with, and you were kind of surfing on that wave for a little bit, and then August came along and it was like, actually this is a little bit crunchy. And then it seems like September's been somewhat of an assimilation phase, where you've kind of adjusted to the idea that you are being asked to transform. And possibly the overwhelming majority of you, I feel, as I'm sitting here, had an idea about what that would look like. But expectation versus reality seems to have been something considerably more separate than you had anticipated. So this Page of Pentacles here is an initiatory point on the hierarchy of the Pentacles, right? And the Pentacles represent, to me, energetic currency. So what you have to invest. And there's been a willingness to invest in you. But the way that you've been investing versus the way that the universe seems to want you to change, I think has probably led to a considerable amount of confusion. I actually just want to pull up the Wild Unknown here and just add a little bit into here. I've cut the deck and it's the Hermit card at the bottom, right there. Look, internal. Tell me about this Page of Pentacles, please. Ooh, so we've got the Emperor, and we've got fucking Scorpio energy again there, the King of Cups, right? And this was the card that I was waiting for. This was the card that I knew was circling around here. I could feel it. It's the Seven of Cups. Oh. And the Seven of Cups represents confusion. I mean, sometimes it can represent illusion too. It can sometimes represent the way that we try and think our way around our emotions rather than feel them. Or they can speak to an absolute submission to the feelings without anything cerebral to guide it over the top, where it becomes completely overwhelming. I'm so glad that card came up because I did feel it really, really strongly. It's why I picked the deck up. I knew the Seven of Cups was in here somewhere. Because while your focus has been on planning, strategy, and bossing up, almost, right? You know, like, now I'm going to become an emperor. I'm not going to be what perhaps other people have decided that I am, which, with all the love in the world, Sagittarius, might include such characterizations as shallow and flaky and non-committed and even hedonistic. You know, Sag is all about fun, and they don't, there's not much else beyond that. Now, that's a lazy characterization of Sagittarius, as we know, but this energy seems to have been taking you somewhere you didn't expect to go. The Emperor is about being in control, and it's possible that you have not realized quite how much control you need, even though it's not perceived by other people. There's a certain Sagittarius version of control that you've been wrestling with, because it seems like the universe has been trying to pry it away from you. So the emphasis has not been on perhaps the more practical aspects of being you and leveling up in the way that the universe seems to want you to do. It's been on the emotional stuff. It's been on the stuff around self-worth. It's been on the stuff around value. And I think value is quite pertinent because Venus has been in retrograde during this entire time. I mean, even in September, it was in post-retrograde shadow. And that has had us absolutely reevaluating what it is that we consider to have value, what it is that we consider to be beautiful, what it is that we consider to be useful to us. And I don't think that you were expecting such a dive into your own emotions as has been triggered in you. 5 of Cups and 7 of Cups, we've got a similar sort of pattern occurring here, except we do have the 4 of Cups there. We've missed out the 6, which is the past, which is childhood, which is nostalgia sometimes. I think what has been really difficult for you to do, and we actually see this bleeding over into your current energy, is to pivot in the way that has become, well, that is second nature to you. You have not been able to pivot away because it's stuff that's going on inside. And it's always like, it doesn't matter how much external stuff you've been trying to pack into your life, where you're trying to boss up and you're trying to be what you perceived the universe needed you to be. The emotional stuff's been rumbling along and you can't get away from it at all. The Father of Cups is emotional maturation, right? It is about the way that you express your emotions. It's the way you hold your emotions. It's about ultimately the level of control you have over your emotions. And I think it's come as a complete shock that the universe seems to be pushing you in that way rather than any one of a number of other ways that you perceived ahead of time was what was required from you. And that's in the best tradition of personal growth. If we could see it ahead of time, there wouldn't really be much in the way of growth for us, would it? It'd just be sort of confirmation that we were just doing the right thing. But there's nothing expanding you there, Sag. Nothing at all. It's got to challenge you in a way that you don't anticipate. And it's about the struggle. Like, there is meaning to the struggle, even if you have not been able to perceive it. Now, when we get into your current energy, I actually like this quite a lot because it does suggest to me that there is a link now being formed in your head between what you have been struggling with internally and what stuff has been going on outside of you. Now, it could be that you've been finding yourself running up against people who are vexatious, perhaps, for some of you, or it might just be that you found the retrograde energy has actually kicked the shit out of you in a way that you did not anticipate, because obviously not just Venus is retrograde. We have a considerable number of other planets in retrograde. We've got Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, your ruling planet, is now retrograde and will be until the 31st of December, I think. 30th or the 31st of December. Uranus is retrograde. Neptune is retrograde. Depending on when you watch this, some Venus is still in post-retrograde shadow. Mercury is currently still in post-retrograde shadow as I record this. There's not very much in the way of movement forwards, but an awful lot in the way of reflecting upon each thing that those planets represent. And it would be useful if any of you are so inclined to perhaps have a look at your natal chart and the transits and see which houses are being affected, where the planets are sitting and what they're doing in your particular house, because it might give you some more insight there, just for some of you. But it's the absence of the 6 of Wands that's been doing this, I think. But I think there's an awareness now that this is simply the energy of a mirror that is being held up to your inner place. And what it's showing to you is the absence of the 6 of Wands. And perhaps it's because the 6 of Wands has been undergoing somewhat of an overhaul for you. It is Jupiter in Leo as a card. And the energy of winning, which was definitely present in July and has been a little bit more subdued over the course of August and September. It's the awareness that it's missing because perhaps you don't know what that looks like now, Sag. You had a very, very clear idea over here, but as we're trotting through these energies, you're like, what the fuck? What do I need to feel successful? What does success look like to me? To what extent have I needed to control situations up until this point? And what is it showing me about me? Because the need to exert control over things is different to working with energies to manifest your will. And I think these control issues are kind of popped out sideways, and you're like, holy fuck, I did not even notice that that was there. But now I have seen it, I can't unsee it. As we got this Four of Cups here. Well, Four of Cups, for me, is a card that speaks very clearly about abandonment issues, right? So we need to take that as read, that there's something that's been flagged up for you here somewhere. Maybe you've been away from people that you did not realise were as emotionally supportive, or that you needed that emotional support of. Maybe it's you've fallen out with people, and that's kind of shocked you a little bit. It can speak about boredom and apathy too. It can speak about an inability to ask for help, where help is required, or even accept help. Now, if it's an accept help situation, then we are almost certainly talking about, there's a pretty obvious correlation to control issues there. But even the kind of emotional support thing, I do wonder how many of you have been confused about what the new version of Sagittarius is now supposed to look like. And you're like, I can't fire my arrow and then just follow it instinctively, even though I can't see where it's landed anymore. That connection that I have to the thing that I let fly, it's not working for me at the moment. And I don't know what that means. I mean, what we have here is an overwhelming amount of uncertainty, Sagittarius, which is normally a good place for you to be, because I don't want things to be predictable. I want surprises. I want, to an extent, I want a little bit of drama. I want that fire in my life somewhere. But it seems to have been more about this sort of energy here, without the possibility of success, that you've been wrestling with. And this stasis has been incredibly frustrating for you, I think. Because what you wanted to do more than anything else is just fucking pivot. I haven't met a Sag yet who didn't just want to be able to go off in a different direction when things are... When circumstances require. It's actually one of the ways in which your resilience really shines. I had this conversation with my daughter and my son in my kitchen a couple of months ago. My son and I are both Leos. He's the 6th of August, I'm the 9th of August. Excuse me. And my daughter's a Sag. And we're having this conversation where both me and my son were saying, I don't know how you do that. How do you just go, right, I'm going off in that direction? It's like nothing affects you. I remember thinking she was just completely fucking bomb-proof when she was a kid, because it seemed like nothing would permeate, her sadness at all. And she literally could spin on a sixpence and she'd go from a full meltdown to, well, everything's happy. And my son and I have lost count of the number of times over the years where we've just looked at each other and gone, I don't really understand what's going on here. It's just pure Sagittarius, And she got a little bit upset because she thought we were having a go at her. We were like, no, we are envious. Like, we wish that we could do that sort of thing, because both of us have that kind of fixed Leo, like, gonna hold on to this and torture myself about it forever. And she was happier then when she realised what we were talking about. But yeah, it's almost like the seat of your resilience, Sag. Now, there have been times in the past, and I think that there's much more of an awareness of that over the last year or so. There have been times in the past where what was passing as resilience for you was running away. It was just like, fuck this situation, I don't want to be any part of it, right? And there's been a corresponding need that goes along with that to lock down your depths. We don't go there because that's a bit problematic, and we want to keep things light and fun and positive. We want to bring that happy energy, that optimism that we associate with Sagittarius. I'm going to bring that to everything, and I might have a little like wobble every now and again where things get a little bit dark and deep, and then you shake your head and you're like, nah, right, that's it, I'm going in that direction. And the energies have not allowed you to employ that kind of resilience recently, which has you kind of going back to the drawing board in some sort of ways. It's like you've been wanting to be the emperor, but you find yourself back here at the Knight of Wands, and that Knight of Wands energy is frustrated. It's not being able to rear up here and go, fuck it, I'm off in this way. I can't pivot, I can't go somewhere else. I have to be with myself. And on top of that, everything outside of me is frustrating and pissing me off. And I consider the bigger lesson of what is being shown to you here, Sag, right? And I do think the control issues are a part of that. And it's control of how you've locked down the access to the deeper aspects of your emotions. Like, they're coming out whether you like it or not. The presence of these Scorpio cards is, like I said, Scorpio dredges the depths. Scorpio is not going to permit you, this Scorpio energy here is not going to permit you to bounce over the top of it and just go to the next cool thing that you feel optimistic about. It's like, no, you have to sit here with this. You have to experience this. And when you have experienced that, then you can move on. Tell me about this Four of Cups, Knight of Wands, Four of Swords. It's like you, and there you are at the bottom of the deck there as well. It's like you have to find a way to become peaceful. Not only with your own depths, not only with the contact with deeper, more problematic emotions than perhaps you've been comfortable with engaging with for a long time. You've got to come into contact with your control issues and see how they manifest themselves. In short, you're kind of getting in touch with you, full stop, Sag. And it's you who copes, and the way that you cope when you're under extreme stress, extreme pressure, that seems to come from the inside out and is then reflected straight back to you out in the world. It's like, how do I be resilient? How do I be the Sag if I can't pivot? Well, the answer's coming in October, Sagittarius, because we have the Queen of Cups here. She's Cancer energy, ultimately. And we have Pisces underneath here. And I think that this is so powerful for you, because not only do we have almost, the entire litany of court hierarchy cards for the suit of water, but it feels like it's almost kind of washing through you, right? The Queen of Cups is water of water, the way that I read the cards, right? So you don't get anything more receptive than the Queen of Cups, from as an observation on the suit of water and the signs that represent water, so Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, it is that extreme receptivity that makes you so very good at reading, or not you, but makes them so very good at being able to intuit what, it's not intuit, it's basically a psychic ability, to be able to feel what somebody else is feeling to such an extent that their brain will then decode it and they'll know exactly what's going on, right? But there has to be a certain amount of awareness of their own emotions first, and obviously there is, like, all water signs grow up with that being a prominent kind of thing for them. But it's both the lesson and the reward for you in October, it seems to me, Sagittarius, that your depths have utility to you, that your emotions have utility for you. it seems like there's been a light that has been shone into the darkest corners of you, and you've been like, holy fuck, what is all of this stuff here? I didn't even know this was here. I've just been being busy and frustrated about the fact that nothing is moving forwards because all of the planets are retrograde, right? And now I'm seeing things about myself. Like, the reason why this is so welcome and such a blessing is because the Queen of Cups is absolutely about acceptance. It's about allowing everything in. There's no need to pivot when the Queen of Cups is there. I mean, the Queens, for me, I think, are the energy of making sense of what we're doing, we're thinking, or we're feeling. And there is a corresponding peace that comes with it, right? Just as the struggle doesn't really mean anything if we don't have the possibility of success and victory after it. Feelings and emotions are not helpful to us unless we can put them in the right place within ourselves and use those to grow, to move forwards, right? And this, rather than the very fiery energy that we've got going on here, and it's even in the Emperor too, you know, it's a card of Aries, got a lot of fire going on here, a lot of trying to do. October is about allowing the feelings to sit with you for as long as it takes to start making sense of what they actually mean. Now, whenever we hit a period of growth, I think it always comes as a surprise, because we're like, we've done our work, we're all good. And even if we intellectually appreciate that the work is never done, whenever a challenging situation comes up, we're like, okay, right, I understand this, I know what is required of me, and this is what I'm going to do. And then blow me if the universe doesn't kick you sideways and goes, no, that wasn't the lesson this time. You already learned that lesson. This is a whole new shiny lesson. And it's going to be as unexpected for you as the last time I hit you with an unexpected shiny lesson. You know, this one is about accepting all bits of you, Sagittarius. All bits of other people too, for sure. But because there's been so much highlighting the underlying control issues, which have probably come out in a way that you didn't expect, and I don't think that you've all become like raging tyrants overnight, but the relationship between what you try to do and what happens when it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, and then your default mechanism of being able to pivot and go do something else. Like, when that's taken away from you, what do you do? And how do you get to a place of peace with that? Because by extension, what you're doing is accepting all the bits of you, but you're also accepting that there are certain things that are outside of your control, and that is okay, and you can make peace with that. And you don't have to pivot away from it. You can just be within that space. You know, the Five of Cups does talk about focusing on the wrong thing, and there are definitely shades of that here. Like I said, we're focusing on the wrong thing, the wrong outcome, right? Missing the lesson as it was being presented until it starts to finally permeate through. But it also talks about grief and loss and, you know, these sorts of energies. I mean, the implication is that it is historic loss. So where the control issues come up, they might likely be pointing to some, you know, period in the past where you have lost a thing. But I wonder if for some of you, the Five of Cups might represent where the stakes have been raised somewhat emotionally. Almost like a recognition that you have emotional needs, and for the first time, you might well have people around you, situations that you are within, that honour those and speak to those. So now it's not what you have lost, but it's what you have the capacity to lose. And that might be the spectre of what's been rolling around in your head here. And it's the unexpected contact with the emotions around that has taken the time to work out. But October is going to see it happen, because we have both the Queen of Cups and the Knight of Cups here. So the Queen of Cups is about the way that you receive. It's about the way that you make sense of your emotions. And the Knight of Cups is about how that then comes back out again. I mean, the Knight of Cups is heart-centered consciousness, right? It's the ability to be able to move from a place of heart-centered consciousness. And by heart, there's going to be a capital H there, right? Because we're not just talking about being entirely emotional all the time. We're talking about being able to access all of the emotions, sit with them, and then decide what is the best thing for you and the people that you care about, humanity generally, whichever way you want to look at it, right? It's making decisions from the heart and not from the head. It's making the decisions based on how you actually feel about something versus what you feel you should do or you must do, or any kind of goals that you've set for yourself. It's a much gentler way of interacting with yourself than you have experienced up until this point. We talk about the Knight of Swords generally as the transmission of information, or at least I do, right? So it's how a bit of information gets from one place to another. So whether that's hemispheres of your brain, right, or different neural networks that are created, or how you express yourself to other people and how they express to you, how you hear what it is that is coming in. It can talk to lots of other things too, right? But the Knight of Cups might then be the transmission of emotional information, right? As more centers in you are opening up, and centers, right, aspects of you are opening up, and there is conversation that can happen between those, plunge in the depths, as it were, and you're allowing the heart energy version of a neural network will be to start connecting with each other. There's something much gentler about the way that you're treating yourself. And interestingly, that last card is the Nine of Wands. Resilience. There's an emotional resilience that is building in here for you. And it isn't based on the need to fight or be confrontational or pivot or be defensive, any of those things. It's based on your ability to be able to accept what it is that you can't change. I've lost count of the number of times I've quoted the Serenity Prayer at you all while I've been on this channel for the last 4 years. But is it not something, along the lines of, God, give me the strength to change what I can, the grace to accept what I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. I do feel like that's going to be something of a mantra for you this month, because you have resilience, and it's been it's almost like it's not been a fear, but it's been a wariness, perhaps even leaning into suspicion about what's going on in the depths of Sagittarius. So it's kind of like side-eyeing it and being all like, I don't like that, looks a little bit murky. I'm going to go shine my light over here because that's optimistic and beautiful. Only you found your ankles have been tied and you can't move anywhere, and you're like, fuck. I don't feel like you've been pushed to the point of exhaustion, but I do feel like you're exploring bits of your psyche that haven't necessarily shown themselves before. And in October, the end result is an increased emotional resilience, which I do think was the point from the very start here. Like I said, these lessons tend to come up sideways. They're never what you think they are. And so where you've been focusing on the wrong thing, whether it be a historical loss or the prospect of future loss, because I mean, like the Two of Wands is staring off in this direction here, and what it's revealed about the things that do actually challenge you emotionally, it's given you an opportunity to wash all those up, hang them up to dry, and approach your own personal resilience from a much cleaner place than you have done up until now. It's kind of a month where there's not much going on outside of you, but there's a shitload going on inside of you, and I would just allow that to happen. I would also keep half an eye on what it is that is currently frustrating the shit out of you, because I do think it's just going to melt away in October. You know, God knows there's enough things going on out there in the world that you know, we could all lose our shit over. And one of your strongest abilities is to be observant and catch the things that other people don't. But I think the focus is very much on the internal place and the growth that's happening in there, which is awesome, Sag. I can appreciate how grinding this might feel in some ways, but I can also see the peace that comes after it, and I think that that's a very important energy to have as we go into the last quarter of the year. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go over to Vimeo. No, I'm going to go and do the extended, so you can join me on Circle or you can join me on Vimeo, it's up to you. Or you don't have to do either of those things if you don't want to. But if you take nothing else away from this, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And that in and of itself, I think, should be enough to allow you to just quell a little bit. You know, everything that is frustrating outside of you at the moment is simply holding up a mirror to the way that you deal with frustration. And emotionally, all of the things that are kind of tagged on to that. So do what you do best, observe, and try not to get too swept away with must, should, ought, don't want to go pivot, go to, and look at what it is that you can pick up from just detaching a little bit from where you are and looking around at what is showing itself to you. Because I think that this will be, I feel like this is the Six of Wands for you, but you're probably not going to recognize that until you hit it. It's almost like you trip over it and you'll be like, that was the point, that was the meaning, I get it now. All right, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.